I really wanted a book that showed proof of possibility, being a woman of color, being someone who was married. I've been married for 18 years now. I have a kid, all of those caregiving responsibilities. So I really wanted to create a book that served that population and also make it affordable, accessible, because I was broke, $42,000 in debt, trying to figure everything out. And I think that books are such a magical resource for us. A beautiful transformation that happens when someone sits with your book or listens as they're doing other things in their life. So we were able to expand our audience and kind of diversify not just health and wellness moms at home with their kids, but also starting to reach out to the entrepreneurial community too. I started to change my relationship with how I approached writing, in that I can't burn myself out while I'm writing this book. And also, this is the anti-hustle guide. Okay, now what is the sustainable marketing plan that I'm not going to burn myself out and keeping this book alive and out in the world? You want something to be sustainable and you don't want to resent your business, or then you want to shut it down, close it down, and never do it again. It needs to be fun and joyful and sustainable.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Jadah Sellner. Jadah is a best-selling author. She's a business coach, an international keynote speaker, TEDx presenter, and a host of a podcast called Lead with Love. She's also the author of a book called She Builds. So this is the anti-hustle guide to grow your business and nourish your life. And she's the co-author of a best-selling book, Simple Green Smoothies, where over 1 million people have embraced the simple and healthy habit of smoothies. She's got a company. She's got Jadah Sellner Media. She Builds Collective. I wish I had your book handy. I know I have it.
I have it.
I have it within arm's reach.
So
there it is. Check it out. She Builds. That's the new book. And then that's the first book, Simple Green Smoothies. Jadah helps women build their businesses and their lives in a way that works for them. So I'm excited about this. We're kind of go two totally different routes here. Like, I think the unique perspective you have, Jadah. Well, actually, first, welcome, Jadah.
Thank you so much. So exciting. I feel like when we first connected was when we were both in like buyout transition on the opposite sides of our businesses. So kind of fun to be on the other side.
It is fun to be on the other side. It's funny. I have a weird memory, and I remember exactly where I was in San Francisco on a rooftop, walking around on a phone call, giving thoughts on like, okay, you're buying out or going through the buyout with your business partner, do this, don't do this, do this, kind of like, so that's so funny. But I guess the really interesting perspective that you have that I want to dive into, we'll cover a couple of different things here, is recipe book, nonfiction book to grow your business. Two totally different ones. We've had some people come on and obviously and talk about each individually, but you've got the perspective of doing both, which I think is really interesting. So we'll kind of break down each of them and walk through kind of what that looked like. How are they different, similar, all that, and then just how have they been successful as a whole. So I guess for starters, though, why books? Why are books such kind of a big part of your brand and your business?
Yeah, for me, it's really about affordability and accessibility. I think that we can only work with so many people at a time, especially on the business coaching side. I charge a lot and serve a very minimal amount of people. And for me, when I was first starting my business, I was inspired by Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week. And also, I'm like, I'm not a white dude. I'm not single. I don't have a college, Ivy League educated. Like, I really wanted a book that showed proof of possibility, being a woman of color, being someone who was married. I've been married for 18 years now. I have a kid, all of those caregiving responsibilities. So I really wanted to create a book that served that population and also make it affordable, accessible, because I was broke, $42,000 in debt, trying to figure everything out. And I think that books are such a magical resource for us. And the same thing with Simple Green Smoothies. You can only serve so many people on even like a digital level. There's something so beautiful about holding something in your hands. I just had a friend, Simple Green Smoothies has been out for 8 years. And I just had a friend who still like has it on their counter, just made a smoothie from that recipe. So there's something very powerful about having something physical, tangible that you can hold, that you can pass on to people, that you can highlight, put Post-its in, soak in a bubble bath, all of those things. There's just a beautiful transformation that happens when someone sits with your book or listens as they're doing other things in their life.
That's awesome. And you talked about a couple of things that I wholeheartedly believe in. I mean, the accessibility, I always say it's like a book is a $15 mentor. The smartest, most
Yes.
successful people on the planet have spent a lot of time crystallizing the best things that they know into a book. And all you have to do is pay $15 and a handful of hours and you can learn from them, right? You might never get the chance to meet them. You might never get the chance to talk to them, ask them questions, work with them. Might not be able to afford to work with them, but you can learn those things, right? And which I think is just so incredible because anybody can come up with $15 in a handful of hours. I mean,
Right.
or go to Goodwill, get the book, right? I mean, it's just, and then kind of like what you said, the leveraged impact of doing this work once and creating this book, like this sign back here. And 8 years later, somebody's got the recipe book, the smoothie book on their kitchen counter, right? It's
Yeah.
like I can't think about many things that I've done 8 years ago that someone still has in their home or that's like still present in their life. And that's what I think is just so cool about books. So it's cool hearing your experience there. Let's maybe start with the Simple Green Smoothies book and then work into She Builds.
Yeah.
So why a smoothie book, and why do you think that book did so well?
So it's interesting because we actually prolonged pursuing a book right away. So I do this, quarterly planning where this is our very important projects and priorities that we're focusing on. And so anyone who reached out to us about a book deal, we had grown our Instagram following to over 400,000 followers, had 355,000 email subscribers, and everyone was kind of chomping at the bit, wanting us to write a book. And we're like, a book is great, but it's not going to pay the bills consistently. So we wanted to create a revenue stream for us that then would allow us to step away from our business, have a team that was running everything. We generated over $1 million in sales in the first 2 years. Once we had a signature core product, then we were like, all right, now we'll say yes. Like now we'll talk to literary agents. And the agent that we ended up going with, he's like, I emailed you several months ago and your team was like, you weren't doing books. And I was like, well, I'm glad that the timing has opened up now. We're ready to start shopping the book. So that was a really big thing for us, is wanting to create, using our business to kind of fund the ability to then write the book that then could expand what we were already building on.
Got it. And so was it one of those things like, did you, you said, hey, we kind of put it off and then the timing was right. Was it, okay, we think this is going to stand alone, make money and be a part of the business? Was it, okay, the book probably won't make money, but it'll feed into the other stuff
Yeah,
inside the business? Like, how did
the
it
second
fit?
part, more of like an ecosystem.
Got
We
it.
got paid really well upfront, and then saw that as a credibility builder, to just get more people to be able to share about the green smoothie lifestyle, and then them being able to sign up for our signature cleanse program that we had at that time.
Got it. Okay. And obviously this is an old business. You got a new business that you're working on now. But what help people understand, for people who might not understand like how that could work, like, okay, a recipe book, how could that relate to a business? So you mentioned the cleanse program just now, but like, what are kind of the ancillary things and
Yes.
opportunities, especially for people who are thinking like, I get asked about this stuff all the time. It's like recipe book, cookbook, like how can that tie in?
Right.
What do you
Yeah.
see as the opportunities that you both did or can recommend for monetizing on the back end?
Yeah, so something that how we grew our online community was actually through a free challenge. It was a free 30-day green smoothie challenge that really built that community. And that was kind of the spark moment for me in losing 27 pounds in 3 months, was drinking one green smoothie a day. So that was the small, quick, easy win that then built upon me wanting to take the next step to like, okay, now I want to eliminate meat from my diet. Now I want to try plant-based eating. I want to eliminate sugar, like all of these things. And so creating a book that really emulated the challenge, and we shortened it. We did a 10-day green smoothie kickstart. It's like, if you
Ah,
could start
cool.
drinking
Mhm.
one green smoothie a day, build that habit, your taste buds are going to change and you're going to want to crave something different. You're going to want more than just green smoothies. You're going to want to know what to eat for lunch, for dinner, for snacks. And so that product that we had on the other side was the answer to that. So we were kind of reverse engineering what's the first easy, quick win that's going to make someone actually want the next step, our paid product.
Got it. That's cool. That makes a lot of sense. So the challenge worked well. sale, and then you're saying, hey, how can we do this slightly differently, and then making that into the 10-day kickstart. And was the 10-day kickstart, was that kind of like the principles that you taught in the book, or that was an ancillary add-on thing
Yeah,
outside of the book?
it was kind of a part of more of the beginning part of the book to kind of get
Got
people
it.
set up. And then
I
here's
see.
mini recipes. Like truly, it's a recipe book. It's
Mm-hmm.
photos of green smoothies and fruits and vegetables and leafy greens.
Mm-hmm.
And then also sharing health benefits and tips and things like that. But it was very green smoothie focused, not all the meals you're going to eat in a day.
Got it. That makes sense. And so then the main mechanism of monetization, and say that 5 times fast, on the back of the book was the cleanse, or was there other
Yeah.
products or things
Yeah.
that the book led into?
Yeah, that was the core, like leading into that product.
Got it. Okay. And what was the price point on that product roughly?
It was anywhere from $47 to $99. And now
Got it.
today, my business partner, Jen Hansard, she still runs the company. I sold my half in 2016, has a paid membership community that people can get access to those cleanses
Got
now,
it.
which is really cool.
I see. That makes sense. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for walking through that. I know we're going through kind of like the Wayback Machine.
Right, totally.
You
I
probably
love it.
haven't talked about this stuff in ages.
2013.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm gonna ask one more question about the smoothie book, and then let's talk about we'll talk about the new book and comparisons, all that. So, what were the 2 to 3 things that sold the most books that you can remember?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we had such an engaged community on social media at that time. So Instagram was really big for that. You know, I mean, 2013 is when we started that account. 2015 is when our book came out. So we really leveraged that as well as continuing to do the free challenge, which basically gave people an extra support of like, you can buy the cleanse, but you can also buy the book too. So that was helpful. We also expanded our kind of our distribution channel and being on entrepreneurial type podcast. So just like I'm doing right now, kind of sharing the behind the scenes of community building strategies. We would do that on entrepreneur podcasts, but then people would be like, I want a green smoothie. I want the results that they were able to create in that way. So we were able to expand our audience and kind of diversify not just health and wellness moms at home with their kids, but also starting to reach out to the entrepreneurial community too. So that was a big
Mm.
thing of doing podcasts and almost being in places where our competitors weren't hanging out.
Totally, totally. It's so funny you mentioned that, because I feel like that's often not what people think. They would think, oh, smoothie book, I bet you went on a bunch of health podcasts or nutrition podcasts or all that. But you saying no, actually other type of audience. Because we found the same thing with selfpublish.com. It's the best conferences or the best podcasts or whatever,
Yes.
or entrepreneurial conferences, or female business conferences, are, it's chiropractor conferences. It's something where it's not the writing conference, right? Because then you're just
Yes.
another, I mean, it's a red ocean
Yes.
versus, I want to be the only girl in the bar.
Totally.
And it's
Totally.
like, okay, I'm looking pretty good. um, and so I love that you mentioned that, because I think especially when authors think about promoting their book, they think I've got to go to the type of podcast for the type of person exactly in my industry.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So let's talk about kind of moving into the new book. And I guess kind of bridge question here would be like, you've done both now. What's the
Yeah.
biggest difference? Strictly writing, like,
Yeah.
and writing and creating a recipe book versus creating a more traditional nonfiction book.
Yeah. So writing about recipes was actually really challenging for me. I am actually not interested. Like I never read a health and wellness book or any recipe books. Like it wasn't where my natural interest was. I'm more interested in lifestyle and business building and marketing. So I wanted to ghostwrite that, but me and my business partner, we kind of divided and conquered, and we like split the chapters up, wrote them, and I was just like, I don't want to write about the health benefits of chia seeds. I just don't. So that was a very big struggle. Another thing that a key difference between She Builds and Simple Green Smoothies is I was a walking paradox with writing the book Simple Green Smoothies. So I'm writing a health and wellness book for people to feel more energized and to live a more healthier life. And I was burning myself out in writing this book. I was up for over 24 hours trying to make the publisher deadline. I remember watching my husband and my daughter walk out of the house to go to school when I had been up all night and all day the day before more in my yoga pants from the day before. So it was very exhausting trying to kind of make the deadlines. And I felt like I didn't want to write another book. I was like, that I want to tell a story, but I never want to write another book. So even with She Builds, I thought I would hire a ghostwriter. I actually tried. And I read, shared a couple of my pages with an editor, and she's like, you can write. Like, you just need help with like kind of trimming the fat. I tend to write 8,000, 9,000 word chapters when I need to get them down to like 4 to 5,000. And so I started to change my relationship with how I approached writing, in that I can't burn myself out while I'm writing this book. And also, this is the anti-hustle guide to grow your business
Yes,
and
to say
nourish
that'd
your
be
life.
ironic. And so
So,
how did you do that? And what's
yes.
your recommendations for authors? It's like, what is kind of the anti-hustle guide to
Yes.
writing and publishing a book successfully?
So, one strategy is asking for more time. So, instead of running yourself ragged, if you really can't make the deadline, ask for more time. And I did do that with my publisher a few times. Then I got to a point where my life coach was like, this might be procrastination right now. I actually don't think you need more time to write the book. I think you need to go all in and write all of the book. So, for me, I had to learn that I am an immersive creative. I'm not Stephen Pressfield, sit my booty in the seat every day, just writing and 6 a.m. I did try it for 4 months and I just wasn't making enough progress and momentum. So, the thing that worked really well for me is I booked solo writing retreats for myself in hotels for 3 to 4 nights, about an hour to an hour and a half away from my home, so that I could have no responsibilities. I don't even have to greet or say hello to my family. I can just roll out of bed and get to writing. And I did this 3 weeks in a row, hit the deadline for my publisher. I didn't ask for more time that third time. And so I think we have to catch ourselves of like when we're facing resistance versus like, oh, actually we're pushing and we're exhausting ourselves and need to slow down and pull back. But I was in a season where I actually needed to like push and move forward through the resistance. And I enjoyed the process of writing. I also brought in more support, more editors and I hired an editor outside of my publishing house. And that really helped me a lot to have someone that I was riffing with on a weekly basis, that we were just handing pages, chapters back and forth. Then we'd send
Mm.
it to my publishing editor, who would give us more edits, and then we would work on them together. And I realized I'm an immersive creator, I'm a collaborative creator, and I also need kind of the compression of time to
Mm.
get something out, but in a way that I'm in control of that deadline versus the other way around.
Ah, got it. So you chose it versus it was chosen for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then Parkinson's law, I mean, an object will swell in proportion to the container that we give it, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's why so often for people, it's your story, I feel like is pretty familiar where, okay, when we do have a deadline, and in this case that you've chosen, not that someone set kind of arbitrarily for you, it's okay, well, that container now at least that's, I don't know, that's how I always
Yeah.
like growing up, in
Yeah.
high school and college. It's like, there's a paper. All right, cool.
Yeah. Because
I
my
know when
publisher,
that paper is going to get written.
right. Well, my publisher only wanted the first 4 chapters of my book. Like I wrote my book in 4 parts, but I knew I needed to write the whole book. So I finished the entire draft of the
Oh,
manuscript,
wow.
even though I only sent her the 4 chapters, because I was like, why am I stuck? I need to write the whole book. I need to see
Ah,
what all the moving
uh,
pieces are. And
totally.
so I wrote all of it, but only gave her 4 chapters and at a time, then would get the next one. So there was just this kind of like hot potato
Oh,
game that we
that's
were playing
interesting.
with, and it made it more fun. And I felt less alone in the writing process.
I could see that. I mean, I've never heard of that structure, but it's interesting. I could put myself in your shoes and feel like if I've got to give you 4 chapters, well, then now all of a sudden in my mind, they need to be 4 perfect chapters.
Right,
And it's
right.
like drawing a painting without knowing what the rest of the painting looks like. It's like, well, it's not kind of hard to give you these 4 if I don't know the context of what's around it. So then you just keep editing those 4 chapters
Yeah.
and changing your mind about what they should be and all that.
Yeah, and I think the reason for her, and every editor is different, but I think what she was trying to find was like, what's the template, right? Like, are you on the right track, or can we make adjustments, criticism, and feedback so that we're not
Totally.
sending in 13 crappy chapters? Like
Great point.
we have a model to follow that's actually working, and then we can
Mhm.
apply that to the future chapters. But still, I need to get my own draft out, be like,
Yeah.
what is all here based on the TOC that I promised to them in shopping the book.
Cool. Nice. And TOC, table of contents.
Yes.
Cool. I hope you're loving this episode so far. So if you're serious about writing and publishing your book, we would love to chat with you and help create a custom plan. All right. So all you need to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. Schedule a 45-minute consultation with one of the experts on my team. All right. Let's implement what you're learning in this episode and let's see how we can help with your book. Go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. Now let's talk about marketing. What was because we talked about the differences in writing. What were some of the biggest differences in marketing the book between how you marketed the smoothie book and how you marketed the newest book?
Yeah, so there was a couple strategies with She Builds. I definitely recorded 30 plus podcasts about 2 months before that would all come out in the month of November when my book came out. And then I have kind of a running list now where I do what I talk about is giving yourself permission to be a slow cooker versus a pressure cooker. So I had pressure cooker moment in the book launch that first 3 months. And actually, I listened to tons of these podcasts on your podcast, which was really fun. But then giving myself some breathing space on the other side of, okay, now what is the sustainable marketing plan that I'm not going to burn myself out and keeping this book alive and out in the world. So I record either a mix of podcasts, basically like show up, or live events, or I'm speaking at an event, or I'm hosting an event. There's something. So I kind of have a rotation of 3 to 5 of those, like my face, my voice is out in the world talking about the book in some form. But in that beginning stage, I definitely did the crescendo of booking podcast. Not too wild. I know there's people who book, I know you've booked way more than that in a shorter amount of time. But that was a really helpful strategy. And then one thing that has been so helpful that I will continue to do is doing live ticketed events, small. So 40 to 50 people where I partner with someone who already has a in-person local community, and they already have a space that we don't have to pay for, and it's a 2-hour event where the price of the ticket is anywhere from $45 to $55, and with that you get a signed copy of my book, and I partner with independent booksellers to kind of ship the book or get it to that event so that we're also supporting indie booksellers. I could get it for less buying directly, the wholesale author rate through my publisher, but I choose to partner with an indie bookseller in that way. And then we have 30 minutes of mix and mingle where people get, cocktails and snacks come together. And then for an hour, we have a Q&A. It could just be me and the host. They're interviewing me, or we might have a panel of women in business. And then the last 15 minutes of that hour, we do a Q&A. And then after that, the next 30 minutes, people can come up to me and get their books personalized. So I'll sign every
Oh,
book
cool. Wow.
before they come in the door and like place them in the seats. And then I say, hey, if you want to come up, take a picture with me, want me to add your name to the book, just come up and say hi during that last 30 minutes of mix and mingle. And I, as an introvert, like just that small group size just feels perfect. And so I rinse and repeat this. I have one booked up in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I did one in Los Angeles with one of my clients who has a brick and mortar art studio in Los Angeles. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I partnered with 2 people, and I have this long list of people who are like, I would love to have you in my city. I will fill the room, fill the seats. And that's guaranteed 50 people that are going to have a copy of my book and also have an in-person experience with me, the author.
Yeah.
And one way that I knew that this strategy works really well is I went to Michelle Obama to see her tour The Light We Carry. I was in the front row with my friend Jen Kem, and everyone's asking like, who read the book? And I was like, oh my gosh, I only listened to like the first 10 minutes before going to the event. But then watching the conversation and them having this conversation, talking about what was inside the book, sharing some of the stories, I was like, I have to read this book now. So even if someone hasn't read the book yet, that conversation, and now they have the book in hand, it really strengthens them to want to actually read the book.
That's really cool. So just to recap what I'm hearing. So live in person 2-hour events, you said you partner with someone in their city. They have an event space, so you don't have to worry about event space. They've already got it lined up. They probably have some sort of community organization or something where they're normally gathering people. They're responsible for filling the room. Tickets $40 to $60, somewhere in that range, per person. That includes a book. Partner with local bookstores to ship the books there, and then do the kind of mix and mingle, Q&A, all that stuff. Is anything that I missed there?
No, you got it. And I was kind of like thinking of like 3 Ps of you partner, then you
Mm-hmm.
promote, and then you have the panel.
Ooh, oh man, writing that down. The 3 Ps of the live in-person events to sell books. That's good. What so is that for you? Is that more of is the thought, hey, this is gonna move books? Is the thought, hey, this is fun and I enjoy this? Is the thought, hey, this is related to the business and like some of these people become clients? Like what's kind of the
It's
thought process there?
all of the above. It for me, if you want something to be sustainable and you don't want to resent your business where then you want to shut it down, close it down and never do it again, it needs to be fun and joyful and sustainable. So that for me, it is fun. It's also quick. It's not super long. Everyone's getting paid in some way. The books are being like book units are being moved. And then I'm meeting people in person and they're, taking photos, DMing me. So then I'm able to start conversations in the DMs to invite them to my next live event. That's a 2-day quarterly planning workshop. Like, here's my retreat, like just starting to have that open loop conversation because people are sharing and have had an experience with me.
That's cool. And I bet a lot of those people are just kind of your raving fan. I mean, after
Yeah.
that experience.
And I'll share one more marketing strategy. I loved the way that I received your book published in the box, and I leveraged that idea, sending it to influencers. But another like distribution channel that I kind of shifted to is actually sending it to people who are influencers, but also would be ideal clients of mine and
Oh, cool.
gifting
Mhm.
them. So even when I speak at events, I'm gifting my book to the speakers on the stage because I tend to work with seasoned female entrepreneurs that are kind of in that 500K to 5 million a year. And that becomes like, oh, just read this book. And they'll read a couple of pages and then they'll send a DM and like, hey, how can I learn how to do you have any coaching available? I've done 30K just in January, just from the book alone, just from someone like reading the book, devouring it, listening, whatever it is, and then wanting to hire me because all of my thoughts, my frameworks, every strategy that I share with my clients one-on-one or in my masterminds, everything I've poured into the book. I didn't hold anything back and try to create like an open loop. It's just like there's people who are DIYers and they're going to try to figure it all out by listening to
Totally.
podcasts, reading books.
Mhm.
And then those who just like, I need someone to coach and guide me, or I need to be in person and experience this to actually implement and take action on it. And those are the people that I love working with who just want a more customized approach to how they're doing their business and their lives.
Yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. And I think we're, completely aligned on that philosophy of give away all of your best stuff for free and people will pay you to tell it to them again.
Yeah, I love
Right. And
that.
don't hold it. I mean, because I get asked this question all the time. We get asked this question. It's like, okay, how much should I include? I mean, I can't put all my stuff in there because then they're not going to do business with me. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's totally
But I'm
backwards.
curious for you, what do you think about, because there's also that feeling of like, am I throwing everything and the kitchen sink into this versus someone kind
Mm.
of focusing on like one key message? It's just a thought piece that I'm curious
Oh,
about
yeah.
what you
So
think
I think
on.
both exist, right? And so this goes to like, so in my book, I talk about kind of like the 4 Ps of a best-selling book. So person, pain, promise, price. And so I think it's super important to get clear on that. So who's the person that I'm writing for? What's the pain that they have that they know that they have? What's the promise that I'm making with this book? And that's the part which I think speaks to what you're talking about, which people try to make this massive promise when they would really probably be much better off making a very specific promise
Yeah.
and then fulfilling that promise fully with the book
Yeah.
and not holding anything back. I don't know.
Oh.
That's kind of how I
Oh
look at
yeah,
it.
I
How do
like
you
that
look at it?
angle. No, I love that. I had a fear in throwing like throwing. I definitely didn't throw it in there. I spent many years writing and editing and doing all the things, but including everything. But I just felt like that was the most generous thing to do. Again, coming back to wanting things to be affordable and accessible. And it makes it easier for me when someone's like, "Oh, you're how much?" I'm like, "Go read the book, listen to the podcast." Do like I to have free free and accessible offerings that people can consume. And I've had people do things low cost where they come back 2 years, implement the strategies, and then they're ready to invest in a higher
Oh
price
yeah.
point.
Yeah, you're paying for yourself in that kind of model, right? Where it's like, all right, if you can't afford it yet, go listen and implement, and that'll
Yeah.
help you to be able to afford to work with me.
And I think it's also a capsule. Like I think with Simple Green Smoothies, that was a time capsule to capture what I learned, what I was teaching to people online that could kind of be a cohesive one-stop shop to kind of get those things. And then with She Builds, if maybe I don't want to do coaching or business coaching or strategy, it's like everything is in there. All of my IP and thoughts and stories are they all live there. So even if I move on to something else, I feel like I have this time capsule of
Mm.
a season of my life and body of work.
And that book can still be impacting people, helping people, making a big difference. I know we touched on this a little bit. Any other thoughts on, so specifically the launch of the new book? Like, was there anything else that was like the top 2 or 3 things that sold the most copies?
I mean, the podcast and the 3 Ps of selling your book through live events
Yeah.
were definitely the big needle movers. And then I will also say just being in DMs with people, like using social media as an opportunity. Even when people book me on the show, I'll be like, "Oh, did you read my book?" Like I almost kind of put like a little like kind of give them a little boost to actually finish the book even before
Hmm.
they interview me on their show.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would say the in-person events and the podcasts were the biggest needle movers for sure.
Cool. And I know we touched on this a little bit earlier on the show, but any other thoughts on kind of like the concepts in She Builds,
Hmm.
right? And kind of through the lens of authors and female business owners, like what are maybe 1 or 2 of the concepts from the book itself that can be applicable to those folks?
Yeah. So inside the book, I have a framework set up, which is Build with Love, LOVE. So it's divided into 4 parts. So lead, optimize, visualize, and expand. So that's kind of the framework of the book. And we're moving away from the cycle of fear, which is hustle culture. And that's FEAR. So forcing, exhaustion, avoidance, and rigidity. So we're moving from fear and then we're building our businesses with love. And so I would say that one key strategy that has been really helpful, that's under the love, the leading from the inside out, especially as a female entrepreneur, someone who wants to, publish books, is to be able to define your enough number. And it's very counterintuitive for people who are super ambitious and want to build big businesses, want to build something that is meaningful and impactful. But I think if we can start to define enough, I did this with even with She Builds, with the book, with my business. What is my enough number? How do I define what success is for me from the inside out? And then anything on top of that is a cherry on top. So being able to get clear, like I've made tons of money in my businesses, but I know my enough number is like $15,000 a month and I'm good. And it's stayed that way even as I've expanded my life, traveling, doing all of the things. I also had an enough even with my book of like, I'm actually not trying to do New York Times bestseller with that dramatic push. I want to be a slow cooker instead of a pressure cooker. And I'm going to do a slow, sustainable marketing plan so that I don't resent the marketing process. Me having this conversation with you several months after, I'm not tired of talking about the topics that are in my book because I didn't burn myself out in that process. And I'm not saying that's for everyone, but it's like define what's enough for you. Because if New York Times bestseller, there's, all of those things, there's like efforts and extra push and all those things you can do. But I think that piece allows us to be more anti-hustle in our businesses and also even in the book writing process of like what truly what is enough. And I'm like, it's not about New York Times bestseller. It's truly about I want this book to reach as many women entrepreneurs as possible so that they don't burn out and overexhaust themselves and then shut their businesses down. I want them to continue to run their businesses. I want them to continue to have time for their family and their lives. And I'm going to do that really like 1 to 50 books at a time.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that a lot. Well, Jada, what would be your parting piece of advice to the Jada from years ago before you even read the first book, and maybe all of the other Jadas out there who are thinking about writing their first book?
Yeah. Something that I say, and I talk about this in She Builds, is don't put a timeline on your dreams, put a timeline on your actions. So I think in the book writing process, we tend to we want it yesterday. We want our books done yesterday. And if we can allow ourselves to extend the timeline of when it all gets to completion, but then put timeline on the actual projects that you're working on, because a book is not a sprint. I don't even think it's a marathon. I think it's a triathlon. There are multiple pieces. There's the writing, there's the editing, there's the marketing, right? And it takes stamina for each one of those pieces. And so we've got to put a timeline around those key parts in the writing process. But as far as making it to the finish line or getting the result that you want or selling X amount of this or X amount of that, that if we allow ourselves to be more compassionate about the timeline of publishing, but the actions, if we're showing up for ourselves and being true in our
Mm.
creative expression, it removes the tension and the shame and the guilt of like, I should have been further along. This book should have been out 5 years ago. There's just so
Yes.
much, and it just takes out all of the joy of the writing process. Like, arrive right here in the moment, extend the timeline on your dreams, but like, let's put some parameters and structure around the projects, put timelines around that. If we look at the project versus the outcome and the destination, we can actually enjoy the process.
Drop the mic. Wow. We got quotes, we got acronyms, we got metaphors, the slow cooker, the pressure cooker, we got love, fear. This is great, man. So good. Jadah, where can people go to buy the book? Remind us name of the book, where they can find it, and find out, grab the book, find out more about you, what you're up to, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can go to shebuilds.com, and that has links to all of the local bookstores. I will just say nothing is cooler than having my 15-year-old go to our local bookstore in downtown and like be with their friends pulling the book out. It's just such a gift and joy. But you will get bonuses in opting in over there after you buy wherever. And I created a link inspired by you, Chandler, and your podcast. So if you go to shebuilds.com/audible, that will take you right to, if you're an audio listener, because you listen to podcasts and you're walking and you're doing the dishes. I also include a bonus guided meditation in the audio version, which obviously not having the meditation in the book, really helping you set your intention. And then I also have a free gift for listeners today. If they go to shebuilds.com/vision, you'll get access to the future vision prompts that I talk about in chapter 3 of the book, which is about really connecting to where you want to be in the next 3 years. And that's a great way to paint the picture of expanding that timeline for your dreams and having like, how do you want to feel when you have that book out in the world? And I'll give you the code for that. I made one for you named after your book. If they put the code published in, they'll get that for free. It costs money, but it'll be free for your listeners.
Let's go. Awesome. Well, guys, grab the book, the audio book, the vision map. As a reminder, the book's called She Builds. Check it out. Hope you love it. As much as I love this podcast interview, this is awesome. Jadah, thank you so much.
Thank you. So much fun connecting with you and catching up.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you could be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help this podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode.